Three United stars could leave in January. The Manu bombshell nobody saw coming. Welcome to United News, where we bring you the stories that matter most to Manchester United fans, even when those stories are difficult to hear. When young stars become unsettled, when promising careers hit roadblocks, when the club faces tough decisions about its future, we are here to break it all down for you. Today, we have a story that should worry every single United fan who cares about the future of this club. Reports suggest that 3 players could leave Manchester United in January, and one of those names will shock you to your core. Kobbie Mainoo, the academy graduate who burst onto the scene last season, is apparently unsettled and asked to leave on loan. How did we get here? How did one of our most promising young talents go from hero to potential departure in such a short time? Let me take you through everything you need to know about the 3 players who could be leaving Old Trafford in the January transfer window. The Kobbie Mainoo situation is heartbreaking. Let me start with the most painful story first, because it needs your full attention. Kobbie Mainoo, one of Manchester United's brightest young talents, asked to leave the club on loan during the latter stages of the summer transfer window. Read that again. A 20-year-old academy graduate who should be building his career at United wanted out. He was concerned about his lack of playing time under Ruben Amorim. He could see that he was not part of the manager's plans. And rather than waste a crucial year of his development sitting on the bench, he wanted to go somewhere he could actually play football. The club said no. They kept him. And now, months later, his situation has not improved at all. Mainoo has appeared in each of United's last 5 Premier League matches. But here is the crushing detail. He has not started a single one of those games. Not one. He comes off the bench for the final 10 or 15 minutes. He gets token appearances that do nothing for his development or confidence. Meanwhile, Casemiro, Bruno Fernandes, and Manuel Ugarte are ahead of him in the pecking order. 3 players occupying the midfield spots that Mainoo desperately needs if he is going to progress his career. This is a disaster. An absolute disaster. And it raises serious questions about how Manchester United are managing their most precious asset. Homegrown talent. How did we get here? Let me take you back to last season so you can understand just how dramatic Mainoo's fall from grace has been. Kobbie Mainoo broke into United's first team and looked like a genuine star in the making. He played with maturity beyond his years. He showed technical quality, tactical intelligence, and mental strength. He earned England call-ups. He played in major matches and did not look out of place. United fans were excited. Finally, we thought, another academy graduate who could become a first-team regular. Another player who understood what it meant to wear the shirt. Another potential club legend in the making. Fast forward to the season under Ruben Amorim, and everything has changed. Mainoo cannot get into the starting lineup. He barely plays. His development has stalled. And he is so frustrated that he asked to leave on loan. What happened? How did such a promising situation deteriorate so quickly? The answer lies in Amorim's tactical system and his preferences for certain types of players. Amorim's 3-4-2-1 formation requires specific qualities from midfielders. He wants physicality, defensive discipline, and experience in those positions. Mainoo, while talented, is still young and developing. He is not the physical specimen that Amorim apparently wants. He is not the experienced head that can control matches and protect the defense. He is a talented youngster who needs game time to continue his development. But Amorim is not in a position where he can give young players time to develop. He is under pressure to get results immediately. His job is potentially on the line. So he picks experienced players like Casemiro and Ugarte, even if they are not actually performing better than Mainoo would. This is short-term thinking destroying long-term potential. This is a manager prioritizing his own survival over the club's future. And it is exactly the kind of decision-making that has held Manchester United back for years. The contract situation makes it worse. Here is another detail that makes the Mainoo situation even more concerning. His contract talks have stalled. Mainoo is currently one of the lowest earners in United's first-team squad. His existing deal runs until June 2027, which means he has less than 2 years remaining. In football terms, that is when clubs start to panic about losing players for nothing. United should be securing Mainoo's future with a new long-term contract that reflects his potential value to the club. They should be making him feel wanted, valued, and central to their plans. Instead, contract talks have stalled. Why? Probably because Mainoo and his representatives can see that he is not playing. They can see that Amorim does not rate him highly enough to give him starts. They are wondering whether United is actually the right place for his career. This is how clubs lose their best young talent. You take them for granted. You do not play them. You do not pay them properly. And then one day, they decide they have had enough and move to a club that will actually develop them and value them. Chelsea have lost multiple talented youngsters this way. Arsenal have lost promising players who went on to succeed elsewhere. United cannot afford to make the same mistake with Kobbie Mainoo. Napoli leading the race. According to reports, Napoli are leading the race to sign Mainoo on loan in January. Napoli are a top Italian club currently managed by Antonio Conte. They compete in Serie A and European competitions. They would offer Mainoo regular first-team football at a high level. From Mainoo's perspective, a loan to Napoli could make a lot of sense. He would get to work under one of the best managers in world football. He would play regularly. He would continue his development at a big club with high standards. But from Manchester United's perspective, letting Mainoo go on loan would be an admission of failure. It would mean accepting that a homegrown talent who should be playing for United is instead going elsewhere because the manager cannot find room for him. It would also be risky. What if Mainoo goes to Napoli and becomes a star? What if he thrives under Conte and shows United exactly what they are missing? What if other clubs start circling, offering him guaranteed playing time and better contracts than United are willing to provide? Loan moves can work out well, but they can also be the first step toward a permanent exit. Once a player leaves, even temporarily, the connection to the club weakens. They get comfortable elsewhere. They build relationships with new teammates and coaches. Coming back becomes harder. United need to think very carefully about whether a Mainoo loan is worth the risk. The better solution would be to actually play him at United and show faith in his development. What United would need to replace him. The reports mention that if Mainoo does leave on loan, United would need to identify a suitable replacement. This makes sense from a squad depth perspective, but it also reveals flawed thinking. Why would United let a talented young midfielder leave on loan, then spend money or resources to bring in someone else to fill that squad spot? Does that make any sense? If United need midfield depth, Mainoo provides that depth. He is right there, ready and willing to play. He is homegrown, so he does not cost anything in transfer fees. He understands the club and is committed to its success. Replacing him with someone else would be wasteful and stupid. It would show that United do not understand the value of their own academy products. The only way letting Mainoo leave makes sense is if United genuinely do not rate him. If they think he will never be good enough for the first team. But nothing in his performances last season suggested that. He looked like a player with genuine quality and potential. So we are back to the same conclusion. This is about Amorim's tactical preferences and his unwillingness to trust young players, not about Mainoo's actual ability. Altay Bayındır finally heading for the exit. The second player who could leave Manchester United in January is Altay Bayındır, and honestly, this one makes complete sense. Bayındır started the season as United's first-choice goalkeeper after Andre Onana was loaned out to Trabzonspor. But he was dreadful. He looked out of his depth in the Premier League. He made mistakes. He offered no confidence to the defenders in front of him. Finally, Ruben Amorim made the change everyone had been demanding. He dropped Bayındır and gave Sen Lammens his debut against Sunderland. Lammens kept a clean sheet and looked composed. The decision was vindicated immediately. So where does that leave Bayındır? As the backup goalkeeper, sitting on the bench with no realistic path back to the starting lineup. Bayındır was expected to leave United over the summer, but Onana's loan move meant he had to stay. The club needed a backup goalkeeper, and Bayındır filled that role. But now, with Lammens established as first choice, Bayındır serves no real purpose at Manchester United. He is not good enough to push Lammens for the starting spot. He is taking up a squad place and wages that could be used elsewhere. A January exit makes sense for everyone involved. Bayender gets to go somewhere he can actually play. United free up resources. It is a clean break that should have happened months ago. United want an experienced goalkeeper. Here is where things get interesting. Reports suggest that Manchester United want to bring in an experienced goalkeeper in January for Lamens to learn from. Remember the Marc-Andre ter Stegen rumors we discussed earlier? Those were probably nonsense. But the underlying idea that United want a veteran goalkeeper is apparently real. Emiliano Martinez of Aston Villa is mentioned as a target. Martinez is 32 years old, an Argentina international, a World Cup winner, and one of the best goalkeepers in the Premier League. He would be an excellent addition to United's squad. But here is the problem. Aston Villa will not sell Martinez mid-season. They are challenging for Champions League places. He is their captain and one of their most important players. Why would they weaken themselves to help Manchester United? United walked away from signing Martinez in the summer because of his wage demands and Villa's asking price. Has anything changed that would make this deal more likely now? Probably not. So if United are serious about bringing in an experienced goalkeeper, they will need to identify realistic targets. Players who are available, affordable, and willing to come. If they do bring someone in, what happens to Bayender? He almost certainly leaves. There is no point keeping 3 goalkeepers when one of them offers nothing to the squad. This would be smart squad management, finally addressing the goalkeeper position properly after years of poor planning. Joshua Zirkzee, the transfer that never worked. The third player who could leave Manchester United in January is Joshua Zirkzee, and this one hurts in a different way. Zirkzee joined United with high expectations. He was excellent for Bologna in Serie A. He looked like a technically gifted striker who could add a different dimension to United's attack. The club paid good money for him and believed he could make an impact. Instead, he has been a complete disappointment. The numbers tell a brutal story. 7 goals and 3 assists in 53 matches for United. That is shocking for a striker at a club of this size. This season, Zirkzee has played just 82 minutes across 4 games in all competitions. He is barely getting on the pitch. When he does play, he looks lost in United's system. It has not worked. Sometimes transfers just do not work out, no matter how promising they looked on paper. Zirkzee at Manchester United is one of those cases. Why Zirkzee has struggled. Let me try to explain why Joshua Zirkzee has struggled so badly at Manchester United. Zirkzee is technically excellent. He is good in possession. He can link play. These are valuable qualities for a modern striker. At Bologna, he thrived in a system built around his strengths. But at Manchester United, he has not fit the system or the style of play. United need a striker who can lead the line, who can score goals consistently, who can be a focal point for the attack. Zirkzee is more of a false 9 or a second striker. He drops deep. He wants to be involved in build-up play. But this leaves United without a proper attacking presence in the box. Additionally, the pressure at Manchester United is completely different from what Zirkzee experienced at Bologna. At Bologna, he could play with freedom and low expectations. At United, every mistake is magnified. Every poor performance is criticized. The pressure can crush players who are not mentally strong enough. Zirkzee seems to have wilted under that pressure. He looks like a player who has lost all confidence. When a striker stops believing in himself, the goals dry up completely. The Italian interest. The good news for Zirkzee is that Italian clubs still rate him. Juventus and AC Milan are mentioned as potential destinations, along with other Serie A sides. This makes sense. Zirkzee was excellent in Italy. He understands the league. He knows the style of play. He could rediscover his form back in familiar surroundings. There is also reported interest from Premier League clubs like Everton and West Ham United. These are clubs where Zirkzee might face less pressure and could be given time to develop. A loan move in January followed by a permanent transfer next summer seems like the most likely outcome. This would give all parties a chance to assess whether the move works before committing fully. United would take a financial hit on this transfer. They paid significant money for Zirkzee and will not recoup all of it if they sell after such a short time. But sometimes you have to cut your losses and move on. What this says about United's recruitment. The potential departures of these three players tell us something important about Manchester United's recruitment and player management. With Man Utd, it shows that United cannot integrate their own academy products properly. They produce talented young players and then fail to give them the game time needed to develop. This is criminal mismanagement of the club's most valuable asset. With Bayender, it shows that United make poor signings without proper planning. They brought in a goalkeeper who was clearly not good enough for the Premier League, wasted money and time on him, and now need to move him on after less than 2 years. With Xerxes, it shows that United do not properly assess whether players will fit their system and environment. They see talent in one context and assume it will translate to Old Trafford, without considering the unique pressures and requirements of playing for Manchester United. These are basic mistakes that well-run clubs do not make. Manchester City do not struggle to integrate young talent. Liverpool do not sign players who obviously do not fit their system. Arsenal do not panic buy goalkeepers who are not good enough. United need to do better. The recruitment needs to improve. The player development needs to improve. The decision-making at every level needs to improve. The January window dilemma. January transfer windows are always tricky. Clubs rarely want to sell their best players mid-season. Values are inflated. Panic buying leads to poor decisions. If Manchester United lose 3 players in January, they will need to replace at least some of them. But finding the right replacements mid-season is incredibly difficult. This is why summer planning is so important. You identify your targets early. You do your due diligence. You complete deals before the season starts so new players have a full preseason to integrate. United seem to constantly find themselves in situations where they need to do business in January because summer decisions did not work out. This is reactive rather than proactive management. The club needs to break this cycle. They need to get their summer recruitment right so that January windows can be quiet periods focused on maybe 1 or 2 specific needs rather than major squad overhauls. What should happen with Man Utd? Let me be very clear about what I think should happen with Man Utd. He should stay at Manchester United. He should be given a clear pathway to the first team. He should start matches, not just come off the bench in the final minutes. He should be shown that he is valued and has a future at the club. Ruben Amorim needs to find a way to incorporate Man Utd into his system. If the system does not have room for one of United's most talented young players, then maybe the system needs to change. This is bigger than Amorim's job security. This is about Manchester United's long-term future. Man Utd could be playing for United for the next decade if handled properly. That is more important than whether Amorim survives the next 6 months. The club should also urgently resolve his contract situation. Offer him a new deal that reflects his value and potential. Show him that he is central to United's plans. Make him feel wanted. If United do all this, Man Utd will stay and develop into the player everyone knows he can be. If they do not, they will lose him, and it will be one of the biggest mistakes in the club's recent history. The broader question about youth development. The Man Utd situation raises broader questions about Manchester United's approach to youth development. United have one of the best academies in world football. They produce talented young players regularly. But too often, those players either do not break through to the first team or leave to succeed elsewhere. Why is this happening? Why can clubs like Arsenal, Barcelona, and Bayern Munich consistently integrate academy products while United struggle? Part of it is managerial instability. When managers are under pressure to get immediate results, they pick experienced players over young talents. They cannot afford to be patient. Part of it is cultural. United have lost the culture where young players were given chances and supported through difficult periods. Sir Alex Ferguson was brilliant at this. Recent managers have not been. Part of it is structural. United need clearer pathways from academy to first team. Better communication between youth coaches and the senior manager. More strategic planning about which young players are ready for which roles. These are fixable problems, but they require commitment from the top of the club. They require everyone to agree that youth development is a priority, not just something you pay lip service to. What happens if all 3 leave? Let me paint you a scenario. January comes. Man Utd goes on loan to Napoli. Altay Bayender moves permanently to a Turkish club. Joshua Zirkzee joins Juventus on loan. Manchester United squad is now 3 players thinner. They need replacements. So they go into the January market, where values are inflated and good players are hard to find. They panic buy a midfielder to replace Man Utd. They overpay for an experienced goalkeeper. They bring in a striker on loan who does not work out. 6 months later, they realize they should have just kept Man Utd and been more patient with their existing squad. But by then, Man Utd is thriving in Italy and does not want to come back. Bayender has been replaced, but the new goalkeeper is not much better. Zirkzee has moved permanently and United take a massive financial loss. This is the nightmare scenario, and it is entirely plausible based on United's recent history of poor decision-making. The alternative is to be smart now. Keep Man Utd and actually play him. Except that Bayender leaving makes sense. Find a realistic and sustainable solution for the striker position. Make thoughtful, strategic decisions rather than reactive panic moves. Be the kind of club that plans ahead rather than constantly firefighting. Final thoughts. 3 Manchester United players could leave in January, and each departure would tell a different story about the club's problems. Man Utd leaving would show that United cannot develop their own talent. Bayender leaving would show that United make poor signings. Zirkzee leaving would show that United do not properly assess whether players will succeed at Old Trafford. These are all fixable problems, but they require United to fundamentally change how they operate. Better planning, better recruitment, better player development, better decision-making at every level. The January transfer window is approaching fast. United need to think carefully about which players to keep, which to let go, and how to replace anyone who leaves. Most importantly, they need to make sure that Kobbie Mainoo does not become another case of homegrown talent slipping through their fingers. That would be unforgivable. Stay informed with Unite United News. Thank you for reading this deep dive into the 3 Manchester United players who could leave in January. We know the Mainoo situation in particular is painful for fans who care about the club's future. Here at Unite United News, we will continue tracking all these situations as the January window approaches. We will give you honest analysis about what each potential departure means and what United should do about it. Keep checking back for updates on Mainoo, Bayender, Zirkzee, and all the other transfer news affecting Manchester United. We are your reliable source for cutting through the speculation and giving you the facts. Stay passionate, stay engaged, and never stop demanding better from Manchester United. Our club deserves better planning, better decision-making, and better treatment of talented young players like Kobbie Mainoo. Glory, glory, Man United. The journey continues, and we are in it together.